Hi, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast and website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about, well, looking at your brain a little bit differently. And as always, I had to do something a little different, so I don't know. I'm going to do the opening again in case it didn't take, because I'm streaming directly from Facebook Live and their interface is not very good. And and they changed the rules again without telling anybody. So that's why I'm streaming from there, not from my regular streaming platform. So again, this is Jim Cranston from 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com, the podcast website about reimagining your life. Thanks for joining me today to talk about looking at the brain differently. So let's get started. If you like what you hear tonight, please leave a like, tell your friends, send me a message. Thanks for joining me tonight to talk about those things that kind of drive yourself crazy about yourself. Well, they may actually be a really desirable thing in the modern world. Perhaps you criticize yourself for, kind of what they call squirrel brain, shiny object syndrome. You keep thinking of different things, lots of thoughts going through your head. Or maybe for working on 10 things at once instead of just finishing one task, or being too hyper and doing too much stuff, or maybe making connections between thoughts that everyone else thinks is a complete non sequitur and make no sense to them at all, or working on something interesting and you suddenly realize you've been doing it for 2 hours, or you're too shy until you meet some like-minded person and then the two you can't stop talking. The list goes on, right? We all have our own special quirks and our own special personality. Well, the good news is the diagnosis and description of all this, all those different traits and more, are now handily consolidated as neurodivergence. Yes, neuro and divergence as in diverging. And I'm glad medicine and science finally caught up to what I've concluded many years ago, which is that most of the abnormal people aren't abnormal at all. They just have different talents and abilities. If you are mildly autistic, say, and it really bothers you when things are even slightly out of order, right, even in patterns that others can't recognize, well, the major IT companies want to talk to you, and they're looking for you badly for things like cybersecurity and related software pattern matching positions. As a matter of fact, while researching this topic, I came across a number of neurodivergent hiring sites, specifically looking for people with different approaches to their thinking. Who knew this would become a thing? Perhaps you can't stand the office chatter and are happiest when you have on headphones and you can get lost in rewarding, doing something, some difficult code or reviewing images or something where you can just really bury yourself in the work. Well, companies are now realizing that there can be opportunities that accommodate your preferences and enable you to outperform your peers, often by a large margin. Think in detailed but unusual ways. When you see something, it's just kind of like you look at it completely different than everybody else, it seems. And the way you talk about it and the way you describe the situation, no one else thinks about the same way. Well, some of the biggest accounting firms have realized that you may also be a wizard at writing amazing AI prompts, and they're using them now. These scripts written by these people that scan contracts for inconsistencies and find tax deductions. There's a whole range of the way people think, and only now it's starting to dawn on people that there's more than one way how people think, and they're really finding a lot of good benefits to themselves, of course, but to the world in general by that. There's a woman, Rachel Lowenstein, and she's an autistic woman who was diagnosed only in 2020. And she was working at the advertising company Mindshare. And she told them about the diagnosis and what it was about. And so they had her become the official support person for other neurodivergent people at Mindshare. They were aware, they were at least aware enough to realize that those people had great talents, they'd already been doing good work, and with some more support, they might be able to even be better at what they could do. More recently, Rachel now works on her own, and reading from her LinkedIn page, she says she is your autistic big sister on the internet. Rachel has 10 years of experience as a media executive and creative leader, helping some of the biggest brands in the world grow through cultural fluency and social impact. Rachel has worked with brands like Nike, Chanel, Booking.com, Unilever, General Mills, Getty Images, UN Women, and more. End quote. Not bad for somebody who's different. The big takeaway, though, as we've often spoken about, is that you are exactly who you are supposed to be. Who you are doesn't have to be society's definition of perfect or pretty or handsome or you're too tall, you're too short, you're too easy to distract, you're always coming up with crazy ideas. You are who you are, and you should love yourself exactly for that reason. You have skills and talents and feelings and insight that absolutely nobody else has, and that's a wonderful thing. Nature advances by trying different things. That's the basis of evolution, right? Try something. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then it probably doesn't get popular and sort of goes away, fades away. The skepticism of anything different is a natural reaction. It's part of a survival mechanism. But society, as it's gotten more organized, it became easier to define different. When people often think of physical features, that they look a different way, their hair's a different color, whatever. But society has long treated any differences as something to be driven away and not tolerated. And unfortunately, that's gotten even worse in the age of social media and the general drop in tolerance, both in social media and in the cancel culture. If anything or anyone is different in any way, even including how they perceive a situation, they're immediately considered intolerable. So that brings us around to the workplace. And lo, didn't the exact same intolerance exist there? Especially in Western cultures, management and work processes were set up, and they're based upon expected common ways of learning and performing tasks. If you didn't fit into that expected common methodology, well, you were just considered untrainable or unfit for the job. It was never considered that maybe, just maybe, you had other skills that were increased and were also beneficial. Indeed, maybe you were actually extraordinary in less obvious ways. It's interesting to note how many of the modern tech leaders are also neurodivergent. The list includes people like Elon Musk, Sam Bankman-Fried, Alex Karp, he's the head of Palantir Software, a huge industry leader. Wanda Champs, she's the founder and principal of Liberty Company. All these people and many more excel in ways others couldn't imagine, exactly because others couldn't imagine what they could imagine. So you're saying, okay, I love myself, I love myself just as I am. Now what? So what? Well, first off, that's great. I hope you really mean it. Because self-love, true self-love and self-acceptance are important and necessary steps in the process of developing your true life vision. Otherwise, you'll be trying to develop the division rather, that society has sort of forced upon you by trying to define what is acceptable, even down to the level of how you process thoughts and how you think. And your thoughts are what define you. They are you. And if you're not comfortable with how you interact with the world around you, then it will be very difficult to ever be comfortable with yourself. Do we have all the traits and characteristics that do we all have, I should say, certain aspects about ourselves, certain traits and characteristics that sometimes annoy us? Well, of course we do. I'm not saying that any of us is perfect, but we are all perfectly ourselves, and we should all be totally comfortable with that. So that's it for the evening. Be pleased with yourself and realize your imperfections may really be your superpowers. Your homework, always optional, is to think about personal traits that you have, in the past tried to hide or minimize, and why you did that, or what made you start doing that. Extra points if you think about how those same characteristics actually have a positive side. Even something like a speech impediment may actually result in your thinking more, say, before you answer. So you may actually be perceived as the one who, with the wise answer, waits for everyone else to finish arguing, and then you give a summary answer that kind of wraps it up for everybody. So don't be too quick to judge yourself. As always, thank you. Remember UKR7 in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, wars in Israel, in Palestine and Gaza, all around. There's lots of things going on, and elsewhere in the world as well. Pick a continent, there's stuff going on. Remember, pray for all those people. Do what you can. UKR7.com has links there. WCK.org has links to World Central Kitchen. They work in areas of disasters across the world. We talk about this all the time. If you can donate to one of those or some other group, great. If you can't donate, remember, just smiling at somebody can make their day a lot better. One of the best ways to care for yourself is to care for others. It changes your perspective on the world, puts you out into the world, and I think just gives you a better view on things. So if you can donate to one of these causes, that's great. If you cannot, understandable. Still try and make somebody's life a little better. As always, thank you for stopping by. If you found something interesting or useful, please pass it along and hit that like button. If not, please drop me a comment as to what you'd like to hear. Have a great week. Remember to live the life that you dreamed of, because that's the path to true contentment. Love and encouragement to everyone. See you next week on 7 Every Minute and 7everyminute.com. Thank you.